I don't really have the tendency of sharing most of my musical journey, and I don't know why that is, but I just tend to be on it. I do what I do. I continue to study, continue to practice, continue to improve, and then doors open up and I kind of walk through them, but I never fully understand the impact or the meaning of it all until sometimes in hindsight. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, this is really awesome what I'm doing, but not really get the significance of it. I feel like I had a very similar experience with fighting games. Some of you guys already know, I used to play fighting games for a living. And I played them at a really, really high level. I played on pretty big stages, beating the very best in the world sometimes for ludicrous amounts of money. At the time when I was doing that, I mean, sometimes I understood, but I'm going to walk you guys through one quick thing so I can show you this parallel. This is about music, but I want to give you guys some perspective for myself, at least how I'm trying to keep perspective. So I played fighting games professionally for a little bit, and I started competing in tournaments in the world tournament called EVO. And at the time, I didn't even understand how brackets worked. I didn't understand how any of it worked. I was just showing up there. My whole goal was really to do money matches and make money, but I'm there and I'm going to enter the tournament. I wouldn't even register for the tournament in advance. I would be past the deadline. And the way I would get in the tournament is I would go up to the runner of the tournament and I'd pay him $100 to go ahead and put me in the bracket, because I was always there at the last minute, didn't even know if I was going to go or not. So I just hand him $100, he'd put me in the bracket, and now I'm in the tournament. I have no intention really of entering the tournament until I'm there and I'm like, well, I got the money, let me go ahead and do it. And it's past the deadline. He put me in the tournament. My third year entering Evolution, I got top 8. I didn't even know how brackets worked at the time. I just played and just kind of kept my head down, played whoever they told me to play. I went undefeated until I got to the finals. Again, I didn't know how brackets worked. I didn't know almost any of the people that I played. They were big names. Some of them were important people, because after I would beat them, then like there'd be a crazy audience. People would go like rushing off to go say, hey, so-and-so, Fanatiq beat so-and-so, or Fanatiq. And it was like these people, I guess, that were important, but I didn't know who they were. So for me, it was just play the match, play the person in front of you, beat them, move to the next. Until eventually they called me backstage and had me do an interview. At the time, it was like such a big deal to me because I had been practicing and training and playing these games, fighting games from most of my life. And I just knew I was playing and like just training to get better, but I didn't know what it was for. I never know what it's for. I just like to do it. When they pulled me back on stage, I'm like just explaining why I like the game, like why the game is so important to me. Not really thinking about like a fighting game career, not really thinking about the implications of even being top 8, not realizing at the time I'm the very first and only pad player in the world to like compete in this game and like make it to the finals. None of that stuff meant anything to me at the time. I just knew I'm playing the game that I've practiced and trained, and I'm now one of the best in the world. I guess maybe now it's starting to hit me. Me making this video, I think, is making it more real to me, because up till now I really haven't thought about it, I guess, that much. Just kind of going through the motion. Anyway, so I do the interview and it's time for me eventually to play my matches. And so I'm like, I'm in top 8. I make a dumb decision to go ahead and play on a joystick. I've talked about that before. But when I got on the stage, the feeling I got was unlike any other feeling I ever felt. It was validating to be there and to know, okay, hey, I'm in the top 8. But when I first sat down and played, hearing the stage and the reaction, hearing the audience from that side, when you can look out and you can see so many people screaming and yelling and cheering and all of those things when you land a hit, and just the impact of what that meant at that point sent electricity through my body. I had never felt physically like that before from hearing just the audience. It was exhilarating like I had never felt before. It meant everything in that moment, and I remember feeling like this was almost like a pinnacle, like something that it was validating so much, because I'd put in all this time and now I'm one of the best players in the world and I'm competing with the best and so on and so forth. So it was like such a big deal. And I remember, after some time I'd kind of quit and I wondered if I would ever feel that way again. After some years, I eventually compete, do some crazy money matches, travel around the country, all those things. It was all really important and good stuff for myself. But I don't know if I ever felt that feeling again. And I wondered if I would ever feel it again, because when I got older and I was competing and I'd be playing around the stages and stuff, I'd win and it didn't really do anything for me. I remember feeling like, oh man, okay, I won a major called ECT4, and afterwards I got up, I shook Justin Wong's hand. It was him and I in the grand final, and it was like, okay, like it happened. But I don't know, it just wasn't as important as the first time when I got top 8 at Evolution. It was just like, okay, so I did the thing that I had been wanting to do forever. Now I'm just wondering what's next. And I have a tendency to do that. Every time I do something, regardless of how important or how big it is, it always feels like, okay, so I did the thing, what's next? I never get to truly appreciate and enjoy the thing that I'm doing. Well, eventually I retire from fighting games, and then it's like, okay, now I got to start doing music, and I'm like pursuing music, and I'm wondering if I'm ever going to feel that way again. I'm thinking this is just this thing that I experienced, and I'll never know what that feels like ever again because I've retired from fighting games. One day I'm learning a song called Rambling Man, and I'm playing with this band, the Foco Experience, and we're playing together. They're teaching me the song, and I'm learning it on the spot. You know, there's a specific lick in the song, and so I heard them do it the first time, so then the next time it came around again, I did it with them. And Joey Foco, she kind of looked back at me like kind of side-eye, like, did you just do that lick? And she had this grin on her face, and it felt so validating because it was like this song that I didn't know that I'm learning on the spot, and we're playing it, and it's, you know, it's a rock song, and it felt so crazily validating. It felt like being on the EVO stage. It was like, yo, I didn't know I could feel this way again. That when we finally performed that song in front of everyone and I hit this crazy solo and all that, it felt like that again. And I was like, okay, so I got it again with music. And since then I've played in front of some decently sized audiences, you know, and they holding up the lighters and stuff, and we're, you know, playing, and it's meant something. It's still cool. I still enjoyed it. So I joined a band not too long ago. I want to say around December, called Ryce. And at the time they asked me to join, but I had some other opportunity in front of me, and I was like, if these opportunities fall through, then I'll join the band. But if not, I'm gonna pursue these opportunities. They were pretty big, and I didn't end up getting it. I had auditioned for this thing. I didn't get it. I was pretty devastated, but it was like, all right, I'll go ahead and do Ryce since this thing didn't come through. So I'm doing it. And immediately it's like crazily challenging. We have a gig coming up, and they're like, it's so soon. We don't even think you're going to play this gig. We just learn all the material. And I'm like, okay, I want to learn 2 songs a week. And they're like, we're going through all 8 songs. And so they're going through all these songs, and I'm trying to learn them, and I've never heard them. Most of them. I've like literally never heard them before in my life, and I'm having to learn them on the spot. And I know this gig is coming up in less than a month, and I'm like going to be having to practice all these songs in time, and I get them, but it's like stressful. I haven't been that stressed in a long time in music, and I remember questioning, am I good enough even? Crazy thoughts, but at the time it was overwhelming. It was just unrealistic to learn the nuances and specifics, because the band is not about just playing the songs the way you want to. They want to recreate the records. Normally when I'm playing a song, I can just play whatever I want to play. A good analogy would be like if someone asked you, hey, can you have a conversation about this subject, right? And you can just talk about it, whatever comes to your brain, talk about it, but just make sure you're conveying this subject. That's pretty easy to do for most people. But then if someone said, hey, I want you to remember this speech, memorize this speech, and then I want you to quote it. Well, then it starts being very specific, and it takes a lot more retention. And I feel like with the band, it wasn't just, hey, get up here and just play the song, because I could recreate the song however I want to, my own interpretation. But it's like, no, learn these specific licks at the right times, all of these nuances, all these individual parts. And that was a different challenge. And so I started doing it. And then it was like, okay, but I had these specific solos. And so I was like, well, I need another keyboard to do these solos. And they got a keyboard, and I was like, hey, I need that, because I'm splitting my board and switching 5 instruments and all this craziness. And they're like, okay, so we got a second keyboard. But I had never played on 2 keyboards before. I didn't play the organ. So it was like, I'm going to have to learn to adjust 2 different keyboards with 2 different sounds and develop my left hand a little bit more, which has always been one of my weaknesses. I was intimidated, but I was like, I'm going to learn this. I don't care. And I learned it. It was such a huge deal. There's just been all of this growth, learning all these specifics, learning all these different synth instruments, learning how to start making the organ sound, because the organ does function differently than a standard keyboard or a piano. I'm learning all these things, and so it was like such a big deal, and it's been validating the growth. It's made me want to go to practice, which anyone that knows me knows how much I hate practice. Then these opportunities start coming, and one in particular is a really huge deal. We're going to be headlining the Taste of Soul. Taste of Soul is the biggest event of its kind. It's a one-day event. It's on Crenshaw Boulevard on the 19th of October, and Ryce is headlining it. They say about 500,000 people attend this event. That's bigger than any audience I've ever played for. Fighting games don't generate those kind of audiences. And it's amazing to me because now I'm gonna have an audience of this size, and I'm gonna be playing music. So I'm gonna get to see what that feels like. It's exciting. It's intimidating, but it's exciting. I brought up the fighting game history because I wanted to make this association, because that's the best way that I can try to relate to it before I experience it. Maybe it'll feel like that EVO moment again. Maybe it'll feel like that EVO moment times 10. Because throughout all the years when I played fighting games, I knew I wanted to be a musician. Not that I wanted to be, I was a musician. I was an active musician during all the years when I played fighting games. I retired from like playing for churches for quite some time when I hit top 8 the first time at EVO. And so then I stopped doing music for a little bit. But always music was my main ambition. It was my main goal. And fighting games helped pave the way for it in a lot of ways through funding equipment, funding just all the things. The keyboard that I'm going to be using at this event is the keyboard that I bought when I played rayray. The day I beat rayray in that money match, I called up my brother who had wanted me to be in a band with him, and I told him, hey, I got the keyboard. I can buy the keyboard now because I had the money. It was kind of expensive. And so I have this keyboard. This same keyboard is a keyboard I'm going to be using to perform at Taste of Soul. Everything comes full circle. It's going to be in the KJLH main stage. It's such a huge deal. I have like a humongous solo from the song called Golden Time of Day. So I'm going to be practicing that every day leading up to Taste of Soul. I'm trying my best to conceptualize how important this day is, how important this show is, and try to understand it now and not have to wait until afterwards in hindsight and be like, hey, that was such a big deal. I hate that I never can appreciate the things in the minute when I'm doing it. I don't know how to get myself to do it, but this is my effort. And I think talking about it is making me realize that it means a lot. It does mean, I know it means a lot, but I don't know. I have a hard time processing things until in hindsight, and then I can go, oh, this was really huge. Even in like fighting games, Sony put on their website, they were talking about fighting game culture and money match culture, and they wanted to talk about 5 big money matches. 3 of the 5 big money matches they talked about were mine, and they didn't include my biggest match for $50,000. But at the time when I'm going through it, I don't really appreciate like, hey, these are humongous moments. Like this, I just think okay, a match came up, I'm setting up a match, and I'm just doing it. It never really dawns on me how big they are and the impact they have on the people who are watching, the people who are, investing. It's just, okay, this is what life is throwing at me. Prepare, sit in training, figure it out, and become the player that I know I can be. That's what I'm doing with the music now. It's a really, really big deal. I hope some of you guys will be able to check it out. I'll try to keep you posted if they are going to play it on the radio, if they're going to stream it, or if it's going to be on television. I'll just try to keep you posted.
Escape and float into my